via telephone. That would be Adam Burkhammer out of the 64th Lewis County. He is the chair of Human Services and has been a frequent guest on this program and our go-to guy when we talk about foster care situations in West Virginia. Adam, good morning. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hey, good morning, guys. Always appreciate the opportunity to come on.
Yeah, this is the cavalcade of House of Delegate stars on the show today. We had Clay Riley in the first segment, Mike Hornby in the second, and now you to close down the show. Adam, you are the anchor leg, sir.
Well, I'll take that as a compliment.
Saving the best for last.
Yeah, we forgot to ask. I meant to ask either Delegate Riley or Delegate Hornby. Was there a tornado warning in Charleston this morning?
Yeah, I woke up. I stay right here close to the Capitol and was woke up about 5:40 or so to tornado sirens going off. And that went on for about 10 or 15 minutes this morning. And a lot of high winds, but I'm not aware that there was actually a touchdown or anything.
Yeah, until I'm going to guess about 5:20, 5:30, we had alarms going off here at the station from the EAS posting those notices, but they were all for central and southern West Virginia as the alarms were going off. None of them were up here around the eastern Panhandle. So I'm glad you guys didn't get anything too bad your way, Adam. I think there's enough going on already.
Well, it's just started.
Yeah.
They're not out of it yet. They're expecting 12 to 15 inches of rain.
Well, that's the second half of that. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. All
Today?
55 counties are
12
on.
to 15 inches?
I don't know if it's today, but it's going to hit the Ohio Valley.
Wow.
Yeah, there's like for the next 5 days, there's rain in the forecast. Adam, let's talk about some legislative action that's been taking place in regards to child welfare in the state, and you know more about that than anybody, so I appreciate you doing this segment. Can you talk to us about some of the things we can expect by the end of this session that will become law that will make life for children in this state better?
Yeah, we've been taking a really robust approach and trying to look at all elements of the system. As I've said all the time, and I continue to say, very complex system, a lot of moving parts, a lot of people involved, and we got to help them all. We can't just pick one and say, well, if we fix one issue, that the others will kind of will catch up. So we're looking at all elements of it. So first, we tackled some of the court issues. There's not enough attorneys that are representing the children, being GALs in the case, and also representing the families in the case. So we gave a slight pay raise there, not as much as I'd initially asked for, but we'll take what we can get there, and giving them a pay increase, as well as we did provide some oversight and some accountability reporting with our GALs to make sure that the performance is there. So tackled that. Another issue.
And by the way, Adam, a GAL is a guardian ad litem?
Yeah. So they're appointed in each case by the court to represent the best interest of the child. So kind of some weird dynamics in the courtroom. The prosecuting attorney will represent the interests of the state and the Department of Human Services. You'll have a respondent attorney that represents the actual biological family and their interest. But we take a GAL approach, this guardian ad litem approach in West Virginia, where we appoint attorney directly to the child to represent their best interest throughout the process.
And for whom was the pay raise approved?
Yeah, so it got out of the House. We gave them a $10 an hour pay raise, which equates to about a $5 million budget increase, and that will cover the respondent attorneys as well as the guardians ad litem.
Okay.
Okay, Adam, and continue. Before I interrupted you, you were about to go into another item.
Yeah, so some of the other issues, just lack of staff, lack of investigative workers in the department, as well as within state police. So we have added some members to the state police child abuse unit, and then we took a kind of a creative way there. We did allow retired troopers and so retired state police folks to be able to come back and work in those roles. We feel like that their experience and their knowledge of doing investigations is crucial, and it gives us an additional eyes on children, additional opportunity there. So we have proposed that, and we'll see if that works its way through the Senate. But I believe there's about 100 openings within the state police. So if we can use some retirees to fill just this child abuse unit, I think that'll help across the board.
Very good.
We've been working on CASA, so court-appointed special advocates are kind of scattered throughout the state. We'd love to see them in all 55 counties. We don't have that representation yet, but we are expanding their scope. So these are volunteers that are able to fill in the court, complex cases, maybe the guardian ad litem's overwhelmed with a high caseload. CASA volunteers can come in and step into that role and oversee the best interest of the kids. So we were able to get $1.8 million in the budget for them to expand services and offices throughout the state. So small investment, but I think it'll have a big return through the process.
And Delegate Burkhammer, can you detail the different duties of guardian ad litem versus a court-appointed special advocate?
Yeah, so the GAL is really in the courtroom defending the child's rights through the court process, where and they are tasked with going and seeing the child, but they have fairly high caseloads right now. We just do not have enough guardians, and so they're kind of struggling to keep up. So where CASA can come in and step in is they're only allowed to take, I believe, 1 or 2 cases per year. So it's a low caseload. These are volunteers, and so they're able to go out and spend a little bit more time with the kids, have those conversations about what they want, what's best. They can talk to parents, talk to families. And so it's a little bit more of a personal approach when we're talking about CASA, where guardian ad litem is a little more of a legal approach.
Thank you very much. Any questions on that before Adam moves on to something else?
Who is a guardian ad litem? Are they, by definition, lawyers, or are they just concerned citizens?
So guardian ad litems have to be lawyers in the state of West Virginia.
Okay.
Now, some other states will do a different model where they don't have to be an actual attorney, and we've kicked that around a little bit, but I'm a little hesitant to move away from a model where the child does not have legal representation, an attorney representing them through the process. So we're still looking at that, investigating other states and looking at results that they're getting, but I feel like we want to tread lightly there.
And this is not a circumstance where they're defending the child against criminal exposure, right? They're defending the child's interest in a domestic.
That is correct. Yeah, this is all civil court action going on here. So yeah, no criminal work. So that kind of 2 separate proceedings. So if a child was abused, there is a civil process where those parents would lose their rights, and this is where the child welfare system comes in, or foster care and kinship care comes in. But then there is a criminal aspect that is totally separate, where a parent could be charged criminally and thus face fines and jail time.
So is there a presumption that in a criminal case where there's an abuse case, you've got the prosecutor who's representing the state, and the guardian ad litem is representing the child? Is it because the child can sort of get lost in the process? I don't understand. Maybe the...
Well, so you kind of have 3 different views in the courtroom. And it's, great question of why we need so many folks there. So we're talking about the respondent attorneys that are representing mom and dad and the family in the case. So
the accused abusers.
That is correct.
This is an abuse neglect proceeding, not a criminal proceeding.
That is correct.
That's not...
Yep, two totally different things. When we're talking about abuse and neglect going through a civil process, and so you have those respondent attorneys is what they would be called, representing those mom and dad. And what they're defending is the rights of those parents to continue to be the parents of those children. So then you've got the Department of Human Services come in, and the prosecuting attorney is going to represent their interest. So they're trying to navigate the whole system, the child, the parents, how things are progressing. Are the parents meeting milestones that are needed? What's going on with the child's life? So that prosecuting attorney will represent the interests of the Department of Human Services and make recommendations based off of the caseworker. Well, then where that guardian ad litem comes in and they say, we take into consideration everything that's going on, but we're going to block all that out, and we're going to say, what is in the best interest of this child? Is it to go home, and do we want to work that process? Are they staying with grandma, and this is a good permanent home, and that's where we should leave them? And they can really hone in on what's in the best interest of the child, and then they are able to defend the rights of that child or the best interest of that child throughout this process.
Good.
I guess I would just say abuse and neglect just sounds like it would always be criminal to me.
Well, you have two different
Well, it
levels
can be.
of
Absolutely.
yeah, you're exactly right. So civil side, abuse and neglect case can rise to the criminal aspect, and sometimes it doesn't. So kind of two different levels.
Okay.
I'm not a lawyer, so maybe the lawyers can help me there. But
Matt is.
so when we're talking about civil, we're talking about preponderance of evidence. So we're looking at not 100% certainty, but we're trying to get there and saying, hey, we just don't think it's good for these kids to live with mom and dad. Maybe it didn't rise to clear and convincing, which is criminal, but there's still an inherent risk that this child or children shouldn't live with their parents. That's the civil aspect. Now, it does rise to the criminal aspect, again, when you're at a clear and convincing point where you can say, without a doubt, I know they abused this child, and they should go to jail for that.
Matt Harvey?
Yeah, I think that's well said. It's in the abuse neglect situations. Oftentimes it does result in criminal charges that accompany it. But, in the criminal case, we're dealing with the punishment that's going to be levied against the offenders. In these abuse neglect cases, we're talking about the family dynamic and whether the state is going to remove the child from that, remove the parental rights from the parents. And that's not, and by the way, that's not the go-to response or default result that the state wants. The state wants to reunify the family and put the child back in a safe environment with healthy parents and a healthy situation. So they do all. That's the last thing. That's the last thing that the court wants to do is terminate the parental rights of people.
Adam, what was next on your checklist of things that hopefully will be accomplished this session?
Yeah, one of them that got a lot of attention is we were trying to reduce the time of when foster kids can be moved. And so there's kind of this 18-month backstop right now where foster kids can kind of be shuffled around at the discretion of the caseworker, maybe at the guidance of the GAL. And we've just really kind of saw, and I've personally experienced that that's not always what's best for kids, and you really don't have a say in that process as a foster parent. So we've tried to reduce that and say, let's stop shuffling kids around so much. And so we reduced that to 12 months, or we put a proviso in there, or 50% of the child's life. So that child has spent 50% of its life with a family. We want that to be considered when we're talking about permanency. So I've been doing a lot of study on brain development, especially in young kids, so that 0 to 3, 0 to 5 range, on how the brain develops and how trauma delays that development, and what it is doing to their brain, and really setting them at a young age up for a childhood and even adulthood of struggles, because we're not getting those right and we're not allowing that brain to develop well. So really looking at reducing those times of movements for young kids. So every time you create a bond and you break that bond and you move that child, that's trauma, which can lead to continual delayed brain development. And so we're trying to slow that down and not make as many moves. And I believe so. It's better for kids, and as well, it's better for foster families. You lose a lot of foster families because they feel mistreated throughout the process, and sometimes that's not right. That for them to think that, sometimes it's just part of the process, but there are times that I believe our foster families are being mistreated, and so we've got to respect them and try to retain them. And I think this bill does that.
So you're saying that a foster child goes to a family, and all else being equal, would not be moved for 12 months once they're at that family? Is that what this is saying?
Yeah, so once they reach that 12-month mark, there's a little bit more of a process for them to be moved. So they can always go home, be reunified with their family. They can always be reunified with siblings. And so we want to make sure we keep those intact, but it's those unnecessary moves that we're trying to prevent. So once we reach that 12-month mark, it's got to reach another level before we start just shuffling kids around. They would have to go to court. Everybody would get to, an opportunity to speak, provide evidence of why they think they should or shouldn't move the child, but not just, hey, we're going to move this child here for some unknown reason, when all we're doing is really just hurting the development of the child.
Well, that makes it sound awfully willy-nilly. Why would they be shuffling the children around anyway? I mean, if
there's an array of responses to that. Sometimes they'll just move kids closer so that it's more convenient for the caseworker, or maybe there's to the court. So they'll leave a child for kind of an extended period of time and say, all right, well, we need to move them closer now to make it a little bit more convenient for us. There are times that we'll come up with what we call fictive kin. So it's kind of a friend of somebody that comes in and wants to try to help, and we'll say, okay, well, we'll recognize that, and we're going to move this child. And all I'm trying to say is sometimes that's relevant and good, but let's back up here and make sure we're not further traumatizing those kids and making sure we're taking care of them properly.
Delegate Adam Burkhammer is our guest here on the program. Adam, the state received criticism a couple of years ago for having too many children in the foster care program, not reunited with their parents yet. Was that a fair criticism, or was that just the situation at the time, maybe because of the opioid epidemic, whatever, that those children really did need to be separated?
Well, I don't think that environment has gotten any better. So we do have too many kids in foster care right now. So we lead the nation drastically with the number of kids per capita in foster care. So there's about 6,000 kids in foster care right now. And my time here over the last couple of years of really focusing on that number really hasn't gotten any better. So as fast as we're getting kids home or adopted, we're bringing more kids in. And I would say that's 80 to 90% of those cases are substance use related. And so it does continue to feed into the system. So it is still a relevant criticism. We've got to do better on the front end. We can perfect the system on the back end. But the ideal situation would be, how do we get prevention on the front end? And so outside of legislation, we've been working on a couple different things, mainly being what we're going to call Family First Prevention Act. That's a federal act that allows some federal money to flow in so that we can provide what they call wraparound services or in-home services to families. And right now, that program in West Virginia is set up that the only time you're able to get those services is once an open CPS case has been opened. An investigation has started. Well, that's too late in the game. We've already lost, and we're moving in the wrong direction there. So we're trying to back up and say, how can we get in-home services, wraparound services to families that are struggling to take care of their kids prior to this open CPS case. So we're working on revamping our state process for that right now. But that's in the Department of Human Services' hands. I've been, giving them information. We've been working together on it, but ultimately that lies within the executive to do that.
And of the 6,000, do we have an idea of what percentage are in what I would call institutions, group homes, orphanages? I don't know what the proper term is, as opposed to living with grandma or with a fictive relative or with a foster family?
Yeah, I don't have those numbers right in front of me, but you can go on the DHHR child welfare dashboard. Granted, DHHR is no longer a thing in West Virginia. We split that up, but that is still the name of it while we continue to work through that split. But on that dashboard, I would recommend everybody go check it out. You can see how many kids are in all of the settings that you mentioned there, as well as out-of-state placements, and you can see total number of kids, their ages, all of that. So no personal information, but you can really get a snapshot of where we're at in the system right now. And we have proposed some legislation that would I would say improve that dashboard and that reporting process. So right now you're just getting kind of this month, this is where we're at. Well, we're trying to start trending that data and looking at it over a period of time so that we can watch trends and try to get better on when things are working, when they're not. So we're trying to get even more drilled down data. I'm a numbers guy, so I feel like, data drives the conversation. When I'm able to go to my folks here and say, hey, this this worked and here's the results, or this didn't work and here's the results. So we've really taken a data approach here to try to get better results.
Adam, I salute you. Many of the delegates I know get complaints because of what I like to call the walk and chew gum bills. In other words, you say, why are you working on this when there's so many other problems? And that's the answer. Well, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Dude, all of your bills are walk-in bills. I mean, you take on nothing but the meat of the problem here, and I salute you for making an effort to try to create some solutions to some difficult problems. Thanks so much for being on the show, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Delegate Adam Burkhammer.